Old Hollywood glittered. Behind the gates, it bit. Studios didn't just cast roles, they cast spouses. When rumors threatened box office, a ring became a gag order and a wedding photo became a shield. Tonight, we unmask 10 legends: Rock Hudson, Judy Garland, Greta Garbo, Barbara Stanwyck, Valentino, Perkins, Tyrone Power, Cole Porter, William Haines, and Charles Laughton, forced to sell a lovely lie. This isn't gossip. It's the cost of survival in a town that prized fantasy over a human life. 1. Rock Hudson, the perfect man who wasn't allowed to exist. He was everything America wanted in a man. Broad shoulders, easy smile, the kind of charm that sold tickets and fantasies. Rock Hudson didn't just play the romantic hero, he was the template. The posters, the fan letters, the movie stills of him holding women in the rain. All of it said the same thing. This is what desire looks like. But behind the world's most marketable smile, Rock was living a lie carefully designed by Universal Studios. He was gay, and everyone in power knew it. In 1950s America, that wasn't just scandalous, it was career suicide. So, when the tabloid Confidential magazine threatened to publish evidence of his relationships with men, the studio went into panic mode. Their solution was as cruel as it was simple: erase the truth with a wedding. His agent arranged it overnight, a marriage to his secretary, Phyllis Gates. There was no love, no proposal, not even a conversation about choice. Just a camera flash, a courthouse signature, and a headline: Rock Hudson marries. The world cheered, Hollywood exhaled, and Rock went home, alone. For 3 years, they lived the lie together. Phyllis asked him once, quietly, if he liked men. He said nothing. Silence was safer. When the marriage ended, there was no scandal, just exhaustion. The studio got what it wanted, a cleaned-up legend. But truth has a way of fighting back. In 1985, Rock Hudson was diagnosed with AIDS. He tried to hide it, but when the story broke, the same world that adored him suddenly turned its gaze on the man behind the myth. The public realized that Hollywood's most masculine hero had been forced to live as its most fragile lie. He died later that year, still gentle, still gracious, still apologizing for existing. And yet, his death changed everything. It forced America to look at AIDS, at shame, at the price of silence. So tell me, did Hollywood create Rock Hudson, or did it destroy him? Would he have been the same legend if he had been free to be himself? 2. Judy Garland and Vincente Minnelli. A love story written by MGM. It looked like the dream ending. Judy Garland, America's eternal sweetheart, marrying Vincente Minnelli, the visionary director who gave her Technicolor magic. The cameras flashed. The studio declared it the most romantic wedding of the decade. But like every MGM fairy tale, it came with a script. And no one was allowed to improvise. Because Vincente Minnelli wasn't the man the world thought he was. Before Hollywood, he had lived freely in New York's theater scene, known for his soft charm, pastel suits, and relationships with men. But when MGM signed him, they also rewrote him. He was told to lower his voice, change his walk, hide his friends. Don't give the audience a reason to question you, one memo reportedly said. And Judy? She already knew what that kind of control felt like. Since age 16, MGM had fed her amphetamines to keep her thin and barbiturates to make her sleep. She was a product, not a person. So when the studio suggested a marriage, his reputation saved, her image polished, she said yes. Not because she was naive, but because she understood survival. Their marriage looked perfect in photographs, matching white outfits, imported roses, rehearsed kisses. Behind closed doors, they lived in separate rooms. During filming of The Pirate, Judy allegedly caught Vincente with another man. She collapsed in tears. The studio's response? Not compassion, sedation. They dressed her, powdered her face, and sent her back on set. By 1951, Judy couldn't perform the fantasy anymore. She filed for divorce. He didn't fight it. There were no interviews, no explanations, just silence, as if their marriage had never existed at all. The public believed the illusion. Hollywood moved on, but for Garland, the damage lingered. The woman who sang "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" had lived her entire life under someone else's script. Was it love? Or was it survival? If you were in her place, would you have done the same? 3. This Greta Garbo, the bride who disappeared. She was the goddess of silence, the face that built MGM's golden empire. Greta Garbo didn't need dialogue. One look could hypnotize an audience. But behind those cold, perfect eyes was a secret that terrified the men who owned her. Because Garbo wasn't interested in men at all. She loved writer Mercedes de Acosta, a woman known in artistic circles as bold, brilliant, and unapologetically queer. Their letters, filled with longing and coded affection, still survive, proof of a love that dared not speak in headlines. When whispers began leaking to the press, MGM panicked. To them, her queerness wasn't romance. It was a scandal that could sink millions in box office returns. So they wrote a new story for her, a wedding. The groom? John Gilbert, the most desirable man in Hollywood. The event? Entirely scripted. Invitations printed, cake ordered, photographers booked. Garbo didn't even agree to it. She was told to smile, say, "I do," and kiss the man she didn't love. But on the morning of the wedding, she vanished. No note, no driver, just gone. Gilbert stood in his tuxedo, cameras waiting, while MGM scrambled to explain her disappearance. They claimed illness. But a week later, Garbo confided to a friend, "I will not stand in front of the world and pretend to love someone I don't." It was an act of rebellion so radical that even now it feels modern. She refused every staged romance after that. No more fake boyfriends. No more arranged photo ops. Garbo chose silence over submission and walked away from the system that made her a legend. But silence has a cost. She spent the rest of her life alone, hidden from the world that once worshipped her. Some call it strength, others call it tragedy. So what do you think? Was Greta Garbo brave for saying no, or selfish for walking away when her truth could have changed Hollywood forever? 4. Barbara Stanwyck and Robert Taylor, Hollywood's beautiful illusion. She was the queen of restraint. On screen, Barbara Stanwyck played women who didn't beg, didn't break. Off screen, she built walls higher than any studio backlot. No scandals, no secrets, or so they thought. In the late 1930s, gossip columnists began asking, why hasn't Barbara been seen with a man? One whisper led to another. Executives at MGM grew nervous because in Hollywood, a woman's silence was dangerous, especially if it suggested she didn't need a man at all. Their fix? Pair her with Robert Taylor, a handsome, rising star who also needed protection from rumors. The studio framed it as a match made on set, love blooming between takes. But in truth, their wedding was curated by a publicity team. The guest list, the photo angles, even the timing, all carefully staged. On her wedding night, Stanwyck looked like she was walking onto a film set, not into a marriage. Taylor, witnesses say, refused to kiss her at the altar. He left the reception early to be with his mother. She spent the night alone. For over a decade, they played along. Public outings were scheduled. Private lives remained separate. They were two of Hollywood's most photogenic lovers, Except they never really lived together. In 1950, Barbara quietly filed for divorce. There was no scandal, no statement, just two lives detaching as silently as they had been bound. But what hurts more? Pretending for the cameras, or realizing the world loved an image more than your truth? Was Barbara Stanwyck protecting her privacy, or protecting a lie? And how many women in old Hollywood had to smile through a role they never chose? 5. Rudolph Valentino, Hollywood's first heartthrob, haunted by whispers. They called him the Latin lover, the man who made women faint in theaters. Rudolph Valentino was cinema's first sex symbol, sultry, silent, and dangerously beautiful. But to the men behind the cameras, that beauty became a problem. The rumors came early. He's too feminine, too polished, too perfect. In an era obsessed with hypermasculinity, any deviation from the script was suspect. So Hollywood took control. Valentino's first marriage, to actress Jean Acker, happened fast. No courtship, no chemistry, just a headline. On their wedding night, she locked him out of their hotel room. The marriage was never consummated. He wrote her letters. She never answered. The humiliation didn't stop there. To correct the whispers, studios arranged a second marriage, this time to costume designer Natasha Rambova, herself rumored to be in love with women. Valentino was warned, marry her or lose your career. They became the power couple of silent cinema. But it was all performance. The passion was scripted. The public swooned. The private man shrank. By 1925, the marriage collapsed. Gossip columns called him the pink powder puff. Hollywood no longer knew what to do with him. Neither did he. Valentino died a year later, aged 31, alone. The crowds wept for a man they never truly knew. Was he a heartthrob or a hostage? Can you be the world's greatest lover and still die without ever being loved for real? 6. Anthony Perkins, the man who played Norman Bates and then played himself. When Psycho hit theaters, Anthony Perkins became an overnight sensation. Fans obsessed over his haunted eyes, his twisted charm. But few knew he was already acting long before the cameras rolled. In the late 1950s, Perkins was in love, not with a co-star, but with actor Tab Hunter. They held hands at private parties, shared an apartment, laughed without watching for cameras. For a brief moment, it felt real. Then Hollywood noticed. Suddenly, Perkins was told to stop attending certain events. Studio assistants warned him that his friendships were becoming a problem. Gossip columns began sharpening their pens. And the price of silence arrived, as it always did, in the form of a woman and a wedding. He married photographer Barry Berenson. No one had ever seen them together before. Friends said he wept the night before the ceremony. After that, the mask never came off. He avoided parties, answered love questions with rehearsed lines. He played the romantic lead in public and the invisible man in private. Even when he was diagnosed with AIDS, Perkins said nothing. He died in 1992, never having told the world who he really was. Still acting, still hiding. Was Anthony Perkins the role or the mask? And when does performance stop being art and start becoming a prison? 7. Tyrone Power, the leading man who disappeared into the shadows. He was the action hero of the 1940s. Sword fights, war epics, women swooning, Tyrone Power was the face of masculine perfection. On magazine covers, he stood strong. On film posters, he smoldered. But off camera, he lived under constant surveillance, not from the press, but from his own studio. Because behind the bravado was a secret. Power had long, intense relationships with men, especially actor Cesar Romero. They traveled together, shared sweets, and disappeared from film sets for days. Hollywood insiders whispered. Studios panicked. When rumors threatened to break wide, Power was called into an office and told, marry or vanish. He chose Annabella, a respected French actress with no scandal attached. They married quickly. The studio staged romantic press shoots, glowing articles, and a honeymoon story fit for a novel. But the truth didn't go away. Power kept seeing Caesar in secret. On a 6-week trip to South America, the press followed and were bribed to disappear. Eventually, Annabella confronted him. According to friends, she asked, "Do you even know who you are anymore?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. They separated in silence. Hollywood spun it as distance due to work. Fans sent flowers. No one knew they were mourning a fantasy. Can someone be the perfect leading man if he's never allowed to lead his own life? Comment your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe. These stories deserve to be remembered. 8. Cole Porter, the composer who scored Love in Silence. He wrote the greatest love songs of his time, Night and Day, I've Got You Under My Skin, music that pulsed with romance, desire, longing. But Cole Porter wasn't writing for a woman, and he wasn't allowed to say so. Everyone in theater circles knew Porter preferred men. His legendary midnight parties were filled with laughter, jazz, and affection that couldn't exist in daylight. But when his fame exploded, his truth became a liability. Sponsors grew uneasy. Radio execs sent quiet warnings. The songs are fine. The image needs fixing. That's when he proposed, not for love, but survival. Linda Lee Thomas was elegant, wealthy, and fiercely loyal. She understood exactly what this marriage meant. Their wedding in Paris was dazzling. Nobles, press, champagne. But behind the photos, they lived an open secret. Linda protected him. She left parties early. She made excuses when guests arrived unannounced. She covered the truth with the grace only love can teach. For 34 years, they lived the lie, not because it was easy, but because it was the only way he could create freely. And still, every once in a while, the mask slipped. A hand held too long, a story erased before print. He never apologized. She never exposed him. Was it a love story or a masterpiece of survival? Let us know in the comments. And if this moved you, subscribe. We have one final story you need to hear. 9. William Haines, the star who chose love over fame. He was the box office king of 1930. Charming, quick-witted, impossible not to like. William Haines had it all. Fame, fans, and a secret Hollywood wanted buried. Because he didn't pretend. Haines lived openly with his partner, Jimmy Shields. Their home was filled with flowers, laughter, and Sunday dinners behind tall hedges. Stars came not for the spectacle, but for the freedom. It was the only place in town where people could breathe. Then came the arrest. A single night at the YMCA with a sailor. The next morning, studio boss Louis B. Mayer gave him a choice: marry a woman or disappear. Haines looked him in the eye and said, "I'm already married." He wasn't bluffing. He meant Jimmy. He was fired that day, blacklisted within a week. His name erased from contracts, posters, even internal memos. But Haines didn't crumble. With Jimmy, he built a new life as an interior designer. And Hollywood's elite, the same ones who watched him fall, secretly hired him to rebuild their homes. Joan Crawford called him the only true star who never lied. They stayed together for nearly 50 years. When Haines died in 1973, Jimmy refused to leave his side. 3 months later, he took his own life, leaving a note that read, "I now find it impossible to go on alone." 2 graves, 1 story, never hidden, never ashamed. He lost the spotlight, but kept his soul. Would you have done the same? Tell us below. And if you believe in love without compromise, hit that subscribe button. 10. Charles Laughton, the genius who couldn't look in the mirror. He won an Oscar, played Kings and Monsters, directed one of the greatest films in American history. To the world, Charles Laughton was the definition of talent, brilliant, commanding, unforgettable. But behind every role was a man quietly at war with himself. Long before Hollywood, in London's theater scene, Laughton fell in love with a young actor. It wasn't scandal, it wasn't shameful, it just was. But when he arrived in Los Angeles, everything changed. A studio executive told him bluntly, "People love your talent. Don't give them a reason to look behind the curtain." So he hid. He married actress Elsa Lanchester, not to play straight, but to find shelter. And she gave it to him. Elsa knew the truth from the start. She didn't flinch, didn't judge. She became his partner in the deepest sense, sitting beside him during interviews, answering the questions he couldn't, hosting dinners so he wouldn't have to lie alone. But the silence wore him down. According to her memoir, there were nights when Charles would sit at the piano for hours, playing the same melody over and over, hands shaking. He stopped attending parties, avoided mirrors, refused to speak of love at all. He wasn't ashamed of being gay. He was ashamed that he had to hide it from the world. They stayed married for over 30 years, not out of romance, but out of loyalty, out of an unspoken pact. I'll protect you if you let me in. And maybe that, in its own quiet way, was love too. Tell us, was Charles Laughton trapped? Or was he the freest of them all? And if this story stayed with you, hit subscribe, because Silent Fame will always tell the stories they tried to bury. Those rings weren't props, they were fences. Some chose silence, some rebellion. A few chose love over fame. If these stories moved you, help keep them alive. Like, subscribe, and share so this history doesn't get buried again. Tell us in the comments, which story hit hardest? Is a brilliant career worth the cost of a hidden life? New here, join the Silent Fame family for more queer histories told with empathy, not cruelty. Hit the bell and drop truth over legend if you're with us. Until next time, protect your truth and protect each other.